My name's Adam Nocek, and I'm an assistant professor of philosophy of technology and science and technology studies at Arizona State University. I'm trained as a philosopher, and sort of philosophy's interaction with design, and in particular architecture, has a long history. And I think that from the get-go, in my beginning stages of my research, I've always been interested in particular architecture, notion, biomimicry, stuff like that, but at a fairly abstract level. But it wasn't until probably about 4 years ago when I started working, I started actually working with designers. I started learning, and not just architects, people who all of a sudden called themselves speculative designers and critical designers. And for me, I was like, what is that? Shouldn't design always be critical? Shouldn't design always in some ways be speculative? It was this moment where I realized that I really need to be paying attention to what's happening in the design world. But I think that there's a way in which the world is full of problems. And I don't think that those are necessarily bad things. I think the world has always been full of problems, and I think problems are tremendous opportunities, but we don't actually pay attention enough to the problems. We tend to generally think in terms of solutions. Problems can be incredibly generative. They're not just, look at it in biology. Adaptation is a problem, right? And organisms figure out and navigate those problems. One of the amazing things about design is it can, when it's paired with really, really rigorous ethnographic, philosophical, critical work, it can penetrate those problems and be a tool to excavate them and reveal them. One of the things we were really trying to get students to grapple with is the way in which they approach a situation with a set of presuppositions and presumptions that fundamentally go unacknowledged. This room, for example, is very clearly, that we're sitting in right now, very clearly a classroom, and that there are certain things that you can do in this space that are prohibited and not prohibited, but there's a very common sense way of orienting yourself in a space. And I think one of the things that myself and my colleague Sha-Xin Wei, we were trying to do is take away those common sense elements, and what are the kinds of techniques that you can develop and that allow you to subtract those elements and sort of approach a situation anew. And we use the figure of the sort of literary figure of the idiot, Dostoevsky's Idiot, to as an anchor for them to start thinking about themselves as idiot designers and what that might mean. And what kinds of ways can they engage the ruts that they find themselves in through a sort of fresh, naive kind of idiocy. I think out of 6 groups, 4 of them, to my knowledge right now, have all evolved into forms of performance. And they're beginning to think about their body as an instrument of articulation. And I think that is incredibly powerful for when we've given them instructions to build models, and they took to it and through multiple iterations have built prototypes and stuff. And I think what's really inspiring is for them to see the limitations of those built models. And I'm actually really encouraged by one group. And they were thinking about, I believe in the beginning, they were thinking about the flag and how the flag is this symbol, this very important symbol, and how why should the flag be so erected and phallic in some ways, right? Wouldn't it be interesting if we could hold the flag, if there were multiple people holding the flag and so forth? Then we were dancing around in a circle and trying to figure out what our bodies can do when they're all interconnected. And they're perfectly confused about what they're going to do because they have do for their actual project. But I think that is the most exciting space to be in, and it's creating a lot of anxiety, but it's actually really productive anxiety because they're really just trying to figure out what their bodies can do and can't. And I think this is a really productive space. And they've gone through multiple steps to get here, and they've scrapped a lot of things, but gained a lot of things on the way as well. The people who are running this program are coming from very, very different disciplines and are bringing very different tools and techniques to bear. Everyone has an interest in design on some level. Some are actually trained designers, but some of us are writing on design, but are begun to have interest in actually practicing design. And then some people are more strictly philosophers, and then other people are media artists and so forth. But everyone kind of sees the power of design, especially today. And I think it's really, really exciting to see so many different perspectives coming to bear and on what design can do today. And I think that's awesome.